Hmm?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is so great to see all of you joining us here virtually and online. I'm Angie Lau. I'm editor-in-chief and CEO of Forecast News, but many of you may know me as a friend and a colleague and a longtime supporter of yours and big fans of everyone in this space right here in Asia. It is the age of disruption, and that is exactly where we are finding ourselves right now. It is my absolute pleasure to host and moderate this next panel. It is a very timely one, as you know. How do we create content in the age of disruption? How have we been disrupted, and how have some of the leading media companies in the region innovated, adapted, and overcome? So without further ado, let's introduce our panelists, and there they are right there. It feels like we're on a game show, so let's go for it. Our first contestant for this hour is Mimi Leshu Wankeet, and Mimi is CEO and co-founder, which is a leading technology and innovation media in the region. It organizes some of the largest technology conference in Southeast Asia called Texas Global Summit. But of course, in the age of disruption, super eager and excited to hear how you have innovated and adapted as well. We also have Tom Grundy there to the top right of your screen. And Tom is a wonderful friend and a great colleague as well. Tom is the editor-in-chief in Hong Kong Free Press. This is the only, sorry guys, let's see what happened here.
Yeah, it looks like Angie's connection got a little bit frozen. Until she's getting back, I'm just gonna continue making introductions to everybody. So we have Tom Grundy from Hong Kong Free Press, and we also have Sonny. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. How to pronounce your last name again?
Sunny Sui.
Sunny Sui. Okay, so Sunny is coming from Frontier Myanmar. I hope that Angie's back. So once her feedback, I'm going to turn it back to her. So yeah, okay, now you're back, Angie.
Okay.
Oh, your connection got frozen again.
Hi, guys.
Oh,
this
okay.
virtual world. This is just the nature of the beast. So thanks for that. Tom is back and Sunny is coming back. Okay, there we go. Here we go. So where was I? Of course, everybody knows incredible presence in the region, nonprofit, independent English language news source in the city. It is run by journalists, governed by a code of ethics. And in fact, it was Hong Kong's first crowd-funded media outlet. And certainly you have been in the crosshairs of late. So let's talk about the age of disruption, not only pandemic times, but other things as well. And then last but not least, bottom right of your screen is Sunny Sui. And Sunny, hello, it is good to see you. He is co-founder and CEO of Frontier Myanmar. It's great to see you, Sunny. Sunny is a pioneer in the Myanmar media industry with more than 20 years experience. You know, so you must have started as a baby, you know. In 2000, you co-founded the Myanmar Time industry and also former CEO of Misima Media Group, which published a daily newspaper, weekly English magazine, news websites. And that's when you established Black Knight Media, publisher of Frontier Media in 2015. So thank you everyone for joining us here. There's so many questions, you know, that we could start off. We started hearing about the pandemic, or before it was a pandemic, it was an epidemic or a mysterious strain of something. And quickly, I think it was mid-January when things just suddenly shifted. It was just around the time of Chinese New Year. You know, being in the news media, of course, we were also starting to hear these stories coming out, and many of us were starting to report on it. But from a personal point of view, did you ever imagine that this would be the state of the world right now? And I wonder, you know, just as you reflect back on it, Tom, I'll start with you.
We are not medical journalists, and we have not particularly been leading on the COVID-19 story. In fact, we find this to be a walk in the park compared to the 9 or 10 months before that, when our team were suffering almost daily, you know, tear gas and crowd control weapons at the hands of the police and all the unrest with the protesters. So yeah, actually, traffic and engagement and our deployment was much down after January, when the protests gave way to the pandemic. I would say that most of the disruption in our newsroom and just a huge upheaval occurred in the months that led up to the pandemic, and then we saw the national security law kick in. So we've reverted most of our reporting resources to that as well. But I have to admit, for COVID-19, it's not something that we've been able to lead on, but I can certainly talk at length today about what we ended up doing differently in terms of deployment and everything else with the protests. Seems Angie's frozen.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, I'm back. Am I back? Okay. Yeah, no, that's it. That it is, you know, it's funny that it's not only a story that we're all covering, it's a story we're all experiencing. Not only experiencing from a personal point of view, but our businesses and our processes and our infrastructure and our ability to monetize, et cetera, have been completely disrupted. Sunny, tell us a little bit about what you experienced and what you're experiencing in Myanmar. when the pandemic landed, what did you experience? Can everybody hear Sunny?
No.
Oh.
Angie, sorry. Yeah, so we are quite lucky that our first COVID patient was found only on the 23rd of March, and but we've been following the global trend of how other newsrooms are coping with it, and so forth. And starting from February, we started. How do you say, the drill for the work from home and using technology to keep everyone in the loop. And so we had kind of like a proper lead time to how do you say, cope with this situation. And also another lucky thing is that unlike Hong Kong, Singapore, Bangkok, our airport is not that busy, so we were maintaining to 350 patients for quite some times, but for past a couple of only last week, I think the second wave is happening, and now we have more than nearly 600 people. Its numbers are getting higher and higher, but like everyone else, it's quite difficult to get information. We are basically using Zoom to get the appointments and the interviews, doing via telephones, and we have to cut down all the trips. And just safety is our number one issue. And we've been doing quite well as of now, but let's wait and see how this pandemic is going to strike in a couple of weeks. But yeah, it seems like numbers are surging again, and starting from Monday, today is the last day at work. Starting from Monday, we are all practicing work from home again. Angie? Am I frozen or Angie is frozen? Hello?
I think Angie's frozen.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Angie is frozen again. So thank you very much for Sonny for your question. So let's see, what are we doing? What are we? Okay, now
as we experience. Oh, do you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, she got frozen again. Maybe. Okay, so I think now let's turn to Oranuch. Your business model is a little bit different compared to the other two, because you are in the news. You are not exactly a news organization. So okay, now Angie is back.
Mike, I want to hear the rest of that question. That's exactly what I wanted to ask too. You're not exactly a news organization, but you are a media events business. You support media. You're adjacent to media. But when everybody is experiencing a pandemic and nobody can travel, how are you coping? Where were you when it all started coming down, and what were your thoughts?
Yes, this is a really tough time for, as I mentioned, we have our own event that called Texas Global Summit. In January, I just went back from US, from Las Vegas. Is CES, one of the big exhibition from hosted by one of the big organizers in US, and I traveled back to Bangkok and have realized that the pandemic spread out to the world, and actually, like, every year we have to host the annual conference in June. So I have like three choices. We have to postpone, or do we have to cancel? or the last one, or do we have to turn it to be virtual? So so this is quite hard for the event organizer or some of the content provider who also have the event like us. If we cancel, it actually like we have already booked the venue, so it's quite hard to like get the refund from the venue back. So this is the bad choice for us. And the second one is we postpone. So when we should postpone, this is the decision that we have to discuss to our audience, to our speaker that we have invited. And do we need to turn it to be virtual? And the final decision is we postpone it to be in October, and communicate with all speakers that they have to do like a virtual event. And yeah, some of the attendees, they think that they want to meet the people as a face-to-face communication. So some people, they want to get a refund. It's very tough time for us, but I trying to communicate that if you want to meet as a face-to-face because they have the booth, they have the exhibition, I understand. But if they want to consume the content, learn from the speakers, virtual can fill in this gap. So I trying to communicate to our audience that what is the main objective, and trying to use the design thinking workshop to learn from their what is their expectation, and trying to develop the solution to meet the attendee as much as we can.
That's really just an example of how you're innovating, and as we must. I mean, N3Con is celebrating its 10th year anniversary this year. There were a lot of plans and a lot of in-person celebrations and networking, and even some karaoke parties that were going to happen. But we, just like everybody else around the world, really had to innovate and adapt. When it comes to actually making sure that your colleagues and journalists are safe, how do you go about the task of news gathering? And this is for everybody here. Age of disruption in Hong Kong, but really increasingly around the world, is not just about the pandemic. There are political tensions, there are protests, and I'm not just talking about Hong Kong, unfortunately. And so in this massive age of disruption at so many levels, how are you creating content? And does it look different than it did a year ago? Tom?
Well, yeah, I mean, in the early days of HKFP, we were more concerned about quantity, and we were generally sat around the office a lot. And then we invested a lot more resources in, features, original reporting, that kind of thing. But we never really envisioned, let alone had the gear to deal with, or were prepared to become almost urban warfare reporters, with, a study out this week saying that 2/3 of journalists last year were suffering crowd control weaponry used against them every single week. And there is not a there wasn't one staff member, myself included, at HKFP who didn't get tear gas, pepper sprayed close range by police, or end up hospitalized or be arrested. The full meal, if you will. And it was we had to in real time sort of adapt. And I'm very grateful to speaking to other editors and journalists in Hong Kong to work out, what to do. We started off just over a year ago wearing N95 masks and slowly updating, our gear as things got hairier on the street, to full face gas masks. And by November, I was smuggling bulletproof vests back from a conference in Florida, as some of the students protesting were cornered on campuses. And we also had to sort of act like some of the protesters here in their philosophy of be water and just react in real time on the ground, working out, where to go and where to send someone and where to base a team member, became almost impossible because quite deliberately, the protesters were playing a game of cat and mouse with police. So we had to all just be on standby at certain points, sort of chasing police and protesters around the city. Whilst a nominated person, sometimes myself or another editor, were basically at mission control here at the office, which I add is not the same office as Sun is, although it looks very similar. And we would watch live feeds, which I think, and you see that now in Portland and other places and other protest hotspots around the world. But you can always rely on often a dozen different journalists live streaming from the ground. We're looking at social media and just trying to work out, even looking at the police live feeds, where the action was, what was happening, and ensuring our team can sort of safely deploy. And then we're working out, you know, what do we do if there are live shots fired? Because it's only learning, you know, by watching other news outlets that we noted that many would pull their entire staff out of the scene, which we fell in line with as well. And of course, when you're a team of just 5, you have to be videographers, photographers, do text and live streaming. I think we were very innovative and quite early getting down there with the live streams, using gyros, using, you know, 4G connections and phones to show readers exactly what was happening on the front lines in real time, but also giving context to that, because we know that's like a raw video feed. So we would give commentary and translations as to what the hell had just happened. But eventually we saw that we were getting a lot more support and donations, and that allowed us to deploy professional photographers and videographers too. But just to wrap up from what you were saying at first, I mean, the toll on journalists, which I think we were all a bit late to realize what was happening, you know, psychologically in terms of burnout, is something that we took very seriously as the protests went on, and I ensured that there were at least 4 different options of different levels of discretion and cost and style for mental health support. But also I was extremely demanding and insistent that whether the reporters on our team wanted it or not, that they would have downtime and work-life balance. And at some stage I was throwing them out of group chats to ensure that they had that time off, as much as all of us wanted to be, you know, on the front line. So looking out for each other and ensuring that that balance was there was sort of really important. And now a year on, we see that a lot of reporters are, you know, reporting instances of PTSD and things like that after day of that kind of protest. And certainly my staff had time off, but I went 7 months without a day off during that unrest. And we are still reeling from it now, of course, in Hong Kong.
Well, I got to follow up really quickly, Tom. You know, you've also been impacted with your ability to resource your newsroom. And I'll just share this story that everybody is reporting on right now. And essentially, you're experiencing something that increasingly is a concern for a lot of newsrooms in Hong Kong. Essentially, one of your journalists, Aaron McNicholas, who covered some of the most violent protests in Hong Kong for HKFP last year, I guess the entire team was waiting for about 6 months for his work visa to be approved, which you know, very recently you were told that his visa was denied. What's your assessment of that?
Well, first of all, I should mention he was reporting for Bloomberg, I think your ex-employer, last year on the front lines. But he was an obvious choice for us to hire. And 6 months ago, we put in an application, and we have another unprecedented situation whereby we are not involved in any of we're not American. It's nothing to do with any US tit-for-tat visa situation that's going on in China at the moment. We've been denied a visa without any reason. An hour ago, the chief executive, Carrie Lam's office, told me they had no further comment as to why this had happened. But looking back to the Victor Malik case, the Financial Times Western journalist who was ousted without reason, a story we broke a few years ago, and Chris Buckley, a famous New York Times journalist who's been ousted from Hong Kong without reason. We seem to be the first local company, the first non-US company this year that is suffering this same plight. And we had hours of legal advice last night on how to react to this new reality in Hong Kong amid the implementation of Beijing's national security law. And I could talk at length as to some of the measures we've been implementing to cope with this. We don't think we will be the last to suffer visa issues. There are multiple other news organizations in Hong Kong where we are seeing the sort of patterns that have been occurring in the mainland now occurring here. And away from visas, we've took rather draconian measures behind me by literally chaining desktops to the desks, up to, you know, seeking to set up backup entities abroad, getting security advice, safeguarding against self-censorship, advising contributors about this new, quite vaguely worded, rather broadly applied security law. And in the wake of the Apple Daily Newsroom raid, we are just scrambling to react to that. And this is just sort of the latest thing we've been dealing with this week with the visa denial.
Tom, thank you for sharing. You know, these are measures that you know, many of us have never dreamed of. Certainly, you know, in the course of our careers. Sunny, you know, you're also experiencing something very similar. You are on the front lines of, you know, essentially one of the biggest international stories, the upcoming November elections in Myanmar. These are also very tense political times there, which makes the job of a journalist in Myanmar also very tough. Can you share, we heard what's going on in Hong Kong. Can you share some of the you know, the political fallout that you have to be very sensitive to as you go through the course of being, you know, of sharing facts and stories from the ground in the upcoming elections in Myanmar?
Yeah, Sanji, this is a very sensitive time for Myanmar, and we've been traveling to the remote areas because our idea is to, because we have a small newsroom, so we can't really cover the whole country. So we specialize. We focus on the 5 constituencies, and we'll be reporting in-depth stories for that. And so, you know, since pandemic is on the rise again, I mean, 2 of my staffs just went into quarantine because they were in Rakhine State, and the Rakhine State is the area that started the local transmission. So they are in now 21 days quarantine. You know, we've been using technology. We've been using data. We are trying to interview as many people as possible. Like some people just don't want to do face-to-face interviews, and we do telephone interviews. We are talking to CSOs. We are talking to the local journalists, and trying to get as much information as possible. And also now we have a team of data scientists and data analysts, and in our newsroom. This pandemic basically pushed us to evolve, how do you say, to have an evolution from a traditional newsroom into innovative newsroom, and that's what we are trying to do. So we are using all the resources as much as we can to come up with the in-depth stories. Keep our finger crossed. Like Tom, I mean, we are having some problems with visa renewals, and you know, we keep on basically asking the ministry to issue visas. So things are getting better, but I think it's going to be very interesting next 3 months, and let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Mimi, I want to bring you in here because, you know, as Tom and Sunny was speaking, it just struck me that, you know, many of us who were very clear on our lanes, print journalists, online digital media journalists, suddenly are video journalists, we're anchors, we're live reporting on the ground, we're cameramen, we're, social media streaming and all the rest. And I wonder, for an events company that is very news oriented in the technology space, how have you also broadened many of your hats? I guess that everybody's wearing a million new hats these days, but what are the other hats that you're also wearing, and as you evolve your business?
For us, we're trying to even we start from the digital part for the online website. But for the online, but for the media side, the tech source, the CO website, we start from the digital. So actually, we do not, in terms of the COVID-19, it doesn't affect our traffic too much. Actually, like the web traffic has increased by like over 5 times. We try to, but what we have learned during the COVID-19 is because we cannot send the editor teams, the writer to do the interview with with the big corporate or some of the speakers. So what we're trying to do is we turn this situation and to upskill and reskill them by sending them to learn how to be the data journalist during this time. So we're trying to build the data-driven culture inside our content team, not just only for the event part, but also the newsroom part, starting from how to find the data source from the online by using social media monitoring tool and filter those data and turn it to be the story, and learn how to visualize to help the people understand the meaning of the content that we are developing. And the content team also need to have the skill to tell like a complex story to engaging infographic. So we recruit the designer and also the developer to help us to create the it's not like the static infographic, but what we're trying to do is we have to create the interactive infographic. This is the new skill that our editor team and the content team have to learn. So because of the I believe that the data will be one of the key success factor for the newsroom in during the digital transformation period. So the data, how to turn it to be the real insight. It is the key success factor because we can get the insight from our audience directly.
Well, you certainly are sounding more and more like a digital newsroom every day. I mean, it really just shows that there's a convergence of, how with the tools that we have, with the connectivity that we do have, sometimes glitchy. So thank you everybody for being patient with me. But with the technology we have, how do we incorporate all of that to get the best stories out to serve our audience better? I want to ask a question on behalf of the audience. We have Jay Ganglani. Jay, thanks for joining us here. And Jay writes this: "Hi, I'm going to be a final year journalism student in September. Congratulations, your timing is." And I'm not saying that facetiously either. And so he says, if you had one piece of advice for those of us that will be graduating in the next 12 months, what would that be? I'll start. Can I start? Jay, I want to tell you, you are probably one of the luckiest journalists graduating class in a very long time. And this is why. think of all the stories that are landing on all of us. We need more incredible journalists just like you. As the business side tries to figure out the monetization, the demand is only increasing. So congratulations there. But what is advice for Jay and all of the other students who are joining us right now, about to go out into the world as journalists? Piece of advice. Let's start with contestant number 1, Sunny.
All right. My advice would be like, this is a modern, you have to be a modern journalist. You have to do everything. Please embrace the technology, mix with journalism, and try to basically express, reveal, make the strong story. And that would be my advice, because this pandemic really pushed us to, how do you say, go advance on the e-commerce, and then the technology usage would be the one of the essential. Just use technology to get the better reach.
It's great. Tom?
Mm-hmm.
Jay, well, I was a teacher for 10 years, hiding away from journalism because the funding model was broken and all the other excuses, and, people with all the doom and gloom. But just as Angie said, any time is great, especially now. And I'd echo what Sunny said about, you have to be a backpack journalist, and everyone at our office is a jack of all trades. Is probably, none of us are brilliant at one thing, but we're awesome at or okay at photography, video, text. We do a bit of everything. Broadcast journalism, just like Angie, we've had to get down with holding a mic outside, at protest scenes. I'd also say there's definitely jobs. Whenever I, try and do recruitment, we, depending on what the role is, sometimes we're overwhelmed and sometimes it's really tough to find people. So if you've got the talent and patience to do this, but I think most of all, something that I worked out, which I wish I'd understood faster, was that you're at university perhaps now, you can get up like at any time out of bed and call yourself a freelance journalist. You can pitch people. You don't even need to declare that you're a student, and get your byline out there. And at least for the time that you are building up a portfolio and are still a student, I think it is okay to do some stuff pro bono to get your work out there and get it professionally edited, so that when you graduate, people can see a track record and you've got your byline up. And then, like I did, you should have a cutoff point and say, from now onwards, I will only do paid stuff. But I would definitely start now and get some, cards made up with your name and journalist, and just go for it, because I wish I'd done it sooner. That's all.
Absolutely. Amen. Mimi, what's your word of advice for anyone thinking about joining media right now?
For me, my advice is, the more challenge you face, the stronger you become. We would like to encourage the new graduate to embrace the failure and learn from the mistake. And you can apply the concept of the digital marketers that encourage you guys to do testing when you launch, or when you post the content or launch some campaign. You can do like a A/B testing, and then getting the feedback based on each scenario. And from this feedback, you can analyze what is the insight, and you can improve. If you do not take a challenge, or do not or don't take the challenge or any opportunity, you cannot learn from them. So encourage you to embrace the failure and learn from the mistake as much as you can.
That's great. It's great. It's a great piece of advice for resilience. And I'll add one more last tip. Everybody is a television presenter, television anchor these days. I mean, everybody. You even if you're not trained in broadcast or whatever the case is, it almost doesn't matter. this is the only way that people can communicate with each other these days. And so get yourself comfortable being in front of the camera, get yourself comfortable speaking, get yourself, give yourself practice. And it doesn't matter if you're a print reporter or a broadcast reporter, it doesn't matter. As Tom and Sunny said, you've got to be a jack or Jill of all trades. And certainly in a COVID environment, when we are all relegated to being in front of this to either do interviews or whatever the case is, this is your point of contact for people. So I would say that this is probably a skill set that is a soft skill, but it's a hard skill moving forward. Okay, so we have a question from Shamil Ibrahim. Shamil, welcome. Thank you so much. Okay, so this question is for Tom. HKFP is a crowd-funded nonprofit news organization. Is HKFP planning to migrate to a subscription model like SCMP, as it's recently changed its revenue stream? And how sustainable is crowdfunding in terms of HKFP, as it has been almost 5 years since the news organization came up?
How dare you, Shamil? No, we will never put up a paywall. I guess we're not allergic to that kind of idea. Of course, people should pay for news. In Hong Kong, we're very lucky that, according to the Reuters Media Institute, we are in a city, I think, top 3 in the world for people's willingness to pay for news. And we were the first, I think, very lucky timing in the wake of the umbrella movement to try crowdfunding for media in Hong Kong. And just to go back to what Jay inquired about, I'm nobody. I'm from Birmingham and had never worked in a newsroom, but wasn't satisfied with the English language landscape in Hong Kong or the ownership issues here. So the tools to set something like this up have been democratized. Anyone can do it. It cost me $100 US. WordPress, all of these different tools are there for everybody. And so we just needed to be able to pay people. And we got a little bit of publicity, but we used a local crowd funding platform and raised 3 times the amount we asked for. And we did rely a lot on volunteer labor in the early days, and we had a large but not very well paid team. But as the years have gone on, and particularly in the wake of the protests last year, we've achieved some sustainability. And that's through doing anything and everything, basically, in order to try and shore up funds, and being quite careful about when and how often we ask. But when we do, some good work or some original reporting, or perhaps when it's been a hairy day in the news in Hong Kong, we will remind readers to perhaps support us. And when we bought new platforms online for payments, such as Bitcoin, or whether we're advertising or sponsored advertorials, PayPal, the different credit cards, even coin donation machines around the city. Whenever we've done that and promoted it, or even shopping referral links, people have sought to support us. But I think the more original reporting I think you can do, I wish we'd done that a bit sooner, the better. But we're also the most transparent news outlet in Hong Kong, and you can see that from our annual reports. And I think that's another reason people donate. But the vast majority, 80–90% of our income is coming directly from readers. And we also want to make it accessible as possible. So like The Guardian, we're not doing a paywall. And for those who can afford to pay for it, we say that, they allow those who can't afford to pay for it to read our news, and we make it as accessible as possible. So that's just our principle. But I certainly respect, and understand outlets like the SCMP and others, whereby it's getting to a stage where, you've got to pay for journalism. And if ad money is not adding up, then certainly I can understand why a lot of newsrooms nowadays are going behind paywalls.
And paywalls aren't always a solution. As we take a look at the current commercialization and monetization models, it is still very much a work in progress. Many newsrooms have experienced, though, a surge in readership. The demand for great content, original reporting, amazing journalism is no doubt, it's all around us. This is what people are hungry for. And certainly as they are shelter in place or quarantined in homes, to be connected to the outside world is through content. Yet, at the same time, we are seeing across the board a drop in revenue as sponsors and advertising drop off. So, Tom, this doesn't really relate to you because you're crowd sourcing, but Mimi and Sunny, how are you addressing these challenges?
I will go first. Okay. Well, we really have to change the whole concept and the whole business model. We used to be a 100% commercial model and ad revenue-based model, and that is not working. So starting from 2017, we managed to transform our ad sales department into marketing and communications agency. Since we have a newsroom, it's a content marketing agency as we started. So that kind of helped to generate revenue and support our newsroom. Then we introduced our memberships model beginning of this year. February, starting from the month of February, and it is working well, and it's very similar to Tom's model because we basically ask who can afford to support independent media, to support us to become a frontiers community, and then on the other hand, keep our content free for everyone. So it's basically a subsidizing, right? So whoever can and willing to support will take that donation or subscriptions, but to basically have access to free content for everyone. And since February, we've been very out loud because it was quite difficult for us to sustain because of the COVID, and we started asking everyone to support and looking for the donors, and we managed to get a few donors, and then we are basically working on the different projects support by the donors, and it's been really interesting for us because every day is a learning curve because we have never dealt with the donors before, and now we are learning, and we know how we are now starting to understand how the donors model work, and I think it's going to be like this for a while. And unless business economy is back on track, I think we will have to rely on the donors at this stage.
That's just so interesting. Yeah, Tom probably has a lot of tips for sure. It's interesting because of the type of reporting that you're both doing, which is such a public service. You're doing some incredible work, from the front lines, and people really appreciate that. Mimi, have you had to change your monetization models at all?
Yes. It is a really difficult time for us as well during the pandemic, with substantial drop in revenue and fewer sales in terms of the sponsorship. So what we're trying to do is there are two things. The first one is we check because we organize Tech Source Global Summit since 2016. So we have like 1,000 of the video, which are evergreen content that we can reuse. So we create a video on demand platform and make it like a subscription model and upload it like similar like an educational content platform to and sell it to the HR in the big corporate. Some of the corporate who want to train their staff, they can watch this video later. But it's just we just started and launched last month. So hopefully we can make it better and can share the result later. But another business model that we're trying to shift the focus is a research team and brand studio, because the skill set of the content team, we can utilize them and develop like a digital agency team to support the corporate who want to do the content marketing as like a white label solution to support the big corporates as a B2B. So these are two parts that we're trying to use it to recover during this pandemic, because in Thailand the subscription as a paywall is still not popular, because the consumer, they still do not want to pay. So these are two things that we try to recover by using a video on demand service, and the second one is create like in-house digital agency to support the big corporate right now.
It's great. It's like going into your kitchen and you don't know what meal you're going to make, but you have all the ingredients and you used to make one certain thing, and now you're just being creative and you're making many, many things. So that's literally what everybody is doing right now. Here's another question from Heidi Lee. Heidi, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Any tips, she asks, on pursuing sensitive, tough stories during this age of disruption? Don't all jump in at once. Sunny, I will ask you this. There are tough stories out there. It's, Myanmar has a very storied past. Politically, it's a roller coaster, one would say. And it is still a maturing nation rising on its 2 feet, but at the same time, there's just a lot of criticism, of tension, of obstacles. These are sensitive times. How do you pursue those tough stories?
Well, I mean, we do long form, we do in-depth stories. You gotta keep taking into the information, all the sources. Like sometimes, if we're lucky, everything works out and the story will come out in about 3 weeks time. But sometimes, it just takes about 4 months, because we're waiting for the quote from the government, and we just can't get it, and we won't be able to release, or upload our story, publish our stories without government's quotes. So any tips? I think, just Myanmar it's very different compared to other regional countries, because the e-commerce here is a bit behind compared to Hong Kong, Singapore, and Thailand. So we basically, everything is like a relationship base. You need to know someone who would answer your questions, and it has to be credible person to answer your questions too. So and on the other hand, it's very sensitive in terms of going into the areas, So my tip will be extra careful. You really have to read someone's mind, whether they want to answer or they don't want to answer. And you can only push so much, because otherwise, it can definitely backfire and ended up getting nothing out of it. So it's all about doing a lot of homework, rely on just take a lot of data, and then meet the right person to talk to you.
That's great. Let me ask another question from, because they all share a similar theme. Ho Su Ming joins us. Thank you so much. This is a great question. So first, kudos to the panelists. Thanks for the illuminating sharing. I was just wondering, though, how would you boil down your reporting and editing tactics in this age of disruption and decoupling? When so much is happening, how can journalists keep the audience interested in content, but not disinterested and apathetic when bombarded by the information, mostly chaotic and distressing. How do you find that balance, Tom?
It's something we're talking a bit now in that we're trying to seek original angles. I know that Quartz will workshop, a headline for a long time between them before they commit to a story and how they can add to it or take it further. We're also deciding to mix in a bit more softer stories and lifestyle and things like that in the coming months, and doing a lot more original reporting, I guess, rather than bombarding Hong Kongers with 6 different versions of the same depressing tales from the day. These ideas are in their infancy a bit, and it's a bit tough when we're a team of 5. So I was going to answer the last question just briefly as well about, I think we're a bit flummoxed because so many things can be sensitive now, but for us, we were dealing a lot with how to deal with like suicide and these issues, and obviously bolstering our guidelines on how to report on that subject, but also perhaps doing deeper, wider takes when it comes to sensitive things like that may cause people to be inspired sometimes when reading on that topic. And the other big thing we're dealing with, just to reference the last question again, is obviously politically sensitive matters are increasing in Hong Kong, things like Hong Kong independence, how we refer to Taiwan. We've spent a lot of time with lawyers this week on what this is going to mean for us. We're checking in to ensure that all staff members are on the same page in terms of their comfort level, being very honest and open about how they feel about having their byline on things, about interviewing certain people. We've interviewed most of the exiled wanted activists that are abroad, for instance, and talking about when and how we will be more sensitive about using anonymity for sources. So trying to navigate all of that whilst also telling our opinion writers and having sort of informed consent when they submit something that might be sensitive is a new reality that we are navigating that we never thought we would be, that perhaps those in the mainland are more used to, or Sunny, in Myanmar. Perhaps another time me and Sunny can catch up on these things, and I can advise a bit on funding and things like that. But yeah, tough times.
You can say that. Well, we've got just a few minutes left, and let's finish off with something that I think is inspiring, because you all are personifying this journey right now, and this is from AAJA-Asia chapter president Wan Ha, and she asks, how do journalists take that leap to become entrepreneurs? It's scary, but it's inspiring that you've all done it. So, Mimi, I'll start with you. How do you encourage? How did you take that leap into entrepreneurship? I think you're muted. You're muted, Mimi.
Oops, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, great. As a journalist, actually, currently we do not think it's like an individual job, but it's like a job as a team. So during this time, during the challenging time, it is the best time that we should work together. And we have realized that the team and all of the staff, they are all the fighters. They have the entrepreneur mindset, and they also have the agile mindset with the fast adaptation. So because during this time, one of the good examples that we have seen is in the past we cannot launch the new product within 3 months, but it's the first time that we can do it, that we can make it. So as a company, as a team, if you want to get it is time for innovation as well. So we should give the opportunity for our team to have their own trade, give them the opportunities to taste the new thing, give them the opportunities to share their idea. This is very important for the journalists, not just individual but also as a newsroom, as a media company.
That's great. Sunny, how did you take the leap? And a quick bit of advice.
Well, I think it's all about passion, right? You gotta keep on doing it. You will fail many times, and you will have a one success after 10 tries. But I think it's entrepreneurship is like, I think we enjoy things that nobody has done it, and you know, I always want to be a pioneer in doing things. And we launched very first podcast in Myanmar 2 years ago, and everybody thought it was crazy, but we managed to make it successful. And you know, I like the feeling. It's all, if you think about money, it will never work. It's all about your passion. It's all about how you want to, how do you say, be part of the democratic transaction. I mean, it's so important that we gotta keep fighting on for the press freedom, and making everyone understand how important it is to basically hold the line, like Maria Ressa said. I think that's where we enjoy. It's not about money, and we are loving it. And I'm so lucky that I go to office, and I'm very happy to go to office every day. So, but my friends think that I'm kind of crazy because I don't make money.
We're starving artists. But we're blessed, just like Tom, that our readership appreciates absolutely what you do. Tom, I'll let you have the last answer here. How did you take the leap, in a bit of advice for those who are being disrupted right now, whether we like it or not?
Fake it till you make it. Like, I avoided this, like I said, for 10 years and wish I'd jumped sooner. I mean, I'd saved up a bit of money to do so, but really I'm nobody, and was not a journalist. I was a blogger. I got permanent residency, started a journalism master's, and you know, you get to like 30 and you're like, well, now or never. So I guess you have to try. But as I said, the tools have been democratized. Anyone can set up their own thing if they're unhappy with what's out there. But the ugly truth is, you will have to, it'll be blood, sweat and tears for some years. And as Sunny said, you know, the money will come later, or maybe it won't. And as was also said, you know, the team is very important as well, getting the right people. But I knew nothing about business, entrepreneurship, startups, accounting, bookkeeping, HR, PR, fundraising, zilch. And I was so lucky that I could, you know, just put out a tweet or something and ask friends of friends and friends. And I'm sure, Angie, you've over the years advised and put me in touch with people. And I had a little WhatsApp group of other editors and journalists at other newsrooms, to be honest, you know, who wanted to see something different, helping out and answering my completely annoying and stupid questions about what the hell I meant to do. And believe me, I had no idea in the early days. I only barely know what I'm doing now. But as Sunny suggested, and Maria Reza with this hold the line, I always talk about stay on the bus, because loads of other people will get off. And if you're as stubborn as my team and I, and as we call it in Hong Kong, have the lion rock spirit, then believe me, people will notice. You do it long enough and it will work.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Tom, I don't think anyone could have said it better, but at the end of the day, you know, it's that entrepreneurial spirit, that spirit of innovation that is really inspiring. I mean, it is exactly the kind of characteristic that means that we can surf this disruption and keep moving forward. And Tom, I'll just address the one thing you know what, for any group in the world to ask stupid questions, we own stupid questions. Journalists own stupid questions. We ask stupid questions, and that is absolutely our strength. And our strength as well is that we support each other here at AAJA-Asia and around the world, just like all of you have. Please, a big round of applause to our panelists for sharing so candidly and so personally. And I hope that it inspired all of you. Mimi, Tom, Sunny, it is so great to see you. And
Thank you.
when we're all better again, we're going to do some big hugs in real life. So thank you to the panelists and thank you to everyone for joining us. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. Game night is starting at 7 p.m. So you got to check your Conference Yap app or the announcement on Facebook group for the link. And so you can see that Cheryl in the comments page has put up a link. It's hosted by Ryan Hynek, and he's one of our favorites. Hilarious, also a teacher, but a even funnier comedian. So I wonder how he's doing online with his classes. I bet you his students are some of the luckiest students right now in virtual land. So anyway, thank you so much. Hey, panelists, again, Mimi, Tom, Sunny, thank you. And good night, everybody. We'll see you at game night.
Yeah. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. See you soon.
Bye, guys.